and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy? Hey, Dan, hold on a sec. You're breaking up again. Can you just repeat that real quick?
Everything's going fine except for a couple of things that made me curse up a storm. News of Christian Scott injured, probably Tommy John surgery. Just that when I saw what it was, I knew right off the bat Tommy John surgery. And the worst part, injury concerns on the Giants' offensive line already, day one of training camp.
Yeah, that's a pain in the neck, man. I know, just like you said, you have to deal with these injuries. It comes in every sports, and it seems like our teams deal with a lot more of them than normal. But it's a shame what's going on with the Mets rookie right-hander Christian Scott. He's dealing with a UCL problem, and they're thinking that what's it called? He's probably not going to pitch that much for the rest of the year. As Dan said, obviously Christian Scott, he's got the UCL, the UCL. But let's not forget too that former Yankees pitcher Masahiro Tanaka did have a similar problem. It was a UCL tear, as a matter of fact. Now the Mets haven't come out and said that Christian Scott had a UCL tear, so I guess we'll see how he deals with it. But yeah, once you start hearing the UCL, then things get a little shady there. So let's keep our fingers crossed, Dan, and just hope that this young pitcher who had pitched so good, and unfortunately the Mets bullpen and among other things have let him down on numerous occasions this year. But let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that it's not Tommy John surgery for Christian Scott, right?
Yeah. And also, I saw this real interesting video about, explaining about Japanese baseball culture. And I was surprised when I learned how these players, even in high school and stuff, how much they're practically get worn out by how much innings they pitch and stuff. I gotta find this video, and I was shocked when I learned this, and I'm shocked this hasn't. I wonder how many MLB general managers saw this video. And
I think a lot of them probably have seen it. And to be honest, the Japanese don't adhere to the stupid 100-pitch crap that we go to over here, and the constant babying of the pitchers that we have here.
Yeah, that's true. And at the same time, I'm just seeing this, and there's guys that, hey. I mean, I understand that, but this was way overboard. What I saw in this video, that to the point that you get a lot of pitchers get injured in high school. I'm seeing in high school they're getting they're like because apparently it's like a big deal, probably even more to professionals. So when apparently win this high school baseball tournament, that's almost over there is like on the level of March Madness, and apparently in Japan it's getting similar viewer TV viewing numbers to the Super Bowl. Like, this is just insanely something else I got to see. At the same time, when I'm seeing these videos and footage of what baseball games are like in Japan, kind of on my bucket list one of these days to attend a baseball game there. Because I hear the fan experience is something else.
Well, that's very true. I've heard a lot of good things about the baseball culture over there and how much they love the American pastime. And speaking of American pastime, Dan, let's get into the Subway Series right now, my friend, as the Subway Series has restarted again last night for 2024. We saw the first half last month at Citi Field. So the Mets take those two games, blowing the Yankees out pretty much in both of those games. Now, tonight, oh, I'm sorry, last night was a much different game than the ones we saw played at Citi Field, as this was a nail biter, Dan. The Mets beat the Yankees 3-2 last night. They improved to 3-0 versus the Yankees this year, and they clinched the season series for just the second time since 2014. They've actually done it 2 of the last 3 years too, or 2 of the last 4, whatever you want to say, whatever it is. But either way, the Mets, winning a season series against the Yankees is pretty significant, Dan. I mean, even if it's only these stupid 4-game, that we play against them this year, that's significant.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. I remember being in attendance at the game in 2004, July 4th, 2004. I saw the Mets sweep the Yankees and winning the season series against the Yankees, and it was at Shea Stadium, and I was like nuts. Like the stadium went nuts that time at Shea Stadium that time. And
yeah, it was the first time the Mets had ever swept the Yankees before.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to get to witness it in person, and me and my sister, who I forgot how young, I forgot how little she was. I know she I just know she was at elementary school age. That's all I remember. My sister was still in single digits when I brought her with me to that game, and I think me and my sister went nuts celebrating that win.
Yeah, that was a great one, man. That whole series in 2004 Shea Stadium, that was great. I didn't go to any games at Shea Stadium that year, but I actually went to the first game that they played that season. It was like June 26th or whatever at Yankee Stadium. It was a week or two before that. And Gary Sheffield hit a 2-run bomb in the first inning off Al Leiter. But then the Mets just dominated the Yankees after that, beating them 9-3. So that was kind of like a sign of good things to come for that 2004 Subway Series, at least. The regular season didn't go too well for the Mets. As a matter of fact, it didn't really end too well for the Yankees either that year. But the Mets, that Subway Series, that 2004 being the first time that they swept them at Shea Stadium, and the first time the Mets ever won the season series against the Yankees too. So that was another significant series.
Yep, and I actually, it's a funny coincidence. I was at that game too. That same game you were at.
The Yankee Stadium game, you were at that one too?
Yeah, I was at that game. How crazy timing it that worked out that we were both at that game.
That's funny. Me and you have probably been to so many of the same games, like before we knew each other, but just never even knew we were in the same stadium,
Yeah, I know. And the crazy part is, I look back at that 2004 season. I feel like that was kind of the getting the team together. That was kind of, I feel, may have led to what was the 2006 Mets. I feel that year. So they feel
saying because that was Jose Reyes coming into his prime, even though he was still dealing with the injuries, and that was during the stupid time the Mets were trying to play him at second base when they had Kaz Matsui. Obviously, it was the debut of David Wright that year. But the one thing I think that really screwed the Mets over was when they traded Scott Kazmir for Victor Zambrano. That deadline was one of the worst moves they ever made.
That trade really had me scratching my head. When I saw the news of that trade, I was scratching my head on that one. And I just feel like that whole trade, I think maybe indirectly ruined Scott Kazmir's career, I think.
Well, Scott Kazmir still had a pretty good career, but I still think that he was pretty much the ace of that 2008 Devil Rays team, or that was the first year of them being called the Rays, the 2008 Rays team that went to the World Series and lost to Philadelphia. But could you imagine? I was just thinking about this the other day, too. It's funny we're talking about this. Could you imagine what that 2006 Mets rotation would have looked like if, okay, because if we're going to go back to 2004, the Victor Zambrano trade was stupid. I hated it the day they made the trade. I thought it was ridiculous. The Chris Benson trade, I didn't mind, even though they ended up giving up Jason Bay and Jose Batista in that trade. But I didn't know who those guys were at that point. But if you were a Met fan in 2004, you knew David Wright's name, you knew Jose Reyes' name, and you knew Scott Kazmir's name. And those were three guys the Mets were supposed to be building around. And could you imagine if the Mets had a top three in 2006 of Pedro Martinez, Tom Glavine, and Scott Kazmir? Then things would be very different that year.
I feel like the Mets probably would have won that NLCS. Probably gotten that's probably a couple of wins in that series that would have propelled them into that, and probably, and I've said it before, if the Mets would have won that NLCS, I feel like they would have easily dispatched of the Detroit Tigers and would have won. They would have won that World Series, and we would have been telling a whole lot different story about 2006. You might have been, for all you know, in that alternate timeline where that whole thing didn't. Scott Kazmir wasn't traded. I may have been. There's a chance today you could have been seen on the show wearing 2006 World Champions shirt, and I probably would have been showing pictures from the Bobo archives of me at the parade, probably.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's unfortunate that once again that just didn't work out in our favor. But yeah, I do tend to think that, or I even still say if either Pedro or El Duque was healthy for that 2006 postseason, and the Mets don't have to start Steve Traxel in a couple of those games where, look, nothing against Steve Traxel. He was a very, good regular season pitcher for the Mets. He was a guy that, went out there and won double-digit games multiple times for the Mets. So as a regular season pitcher, I got nothing against Steve Traxel. But in the playoffs, starting Steve Traxel, that just wasn't good. And unfortunately, that was one of the things that doomed that team. But yeah. And the crazy thing is, when I look back at Steve Traxel, I realized probably is a pitcher that I don't know if he would have been pitching in the major leagues today with that. I don't think that pitch clock would have really worked well in him being able to accomplish what he did, what he was able to do in his career. No, you're right. And that's another reason why I don't like the pitch clock, because it was always entertaining. Steve Traxel, if you're not familiar with what Dan's talking about, they used to have a nickname for Steve Traxel, and it's one of my favorite nicknames ever. They used to call him the human rain delay because it felt like a rain delay was going on because he would just stand on the mound and he'd be rubbing the ball up and he'd be having his mitt and the crook of his arm and everything. He'd be doing everything but throwing a pitch. And it was very entertaining to watch.
Yep. I remember a couple of jokes I said. I would at times say to my mom on the cell phone, yeah, I don't know what time I'm going to be back. Steve Traxel's pitching today. It seems to be a joke I said. If Steve Traxel was pitching that day, that was starting that day, the game that I was attending. The other thing I kind of also noticed, he seemed to be more quick. He seemed to be a little bit quicker when there wasn't runners on base, and I feel like when he was more slower when there were base runners. From what I remember. Back then.
1,000%. You're 100% right. And as a matter of fact, I remember Gary Cohen pointing that out multiple times too, about how, as soon as one guy gets on against Traxel, boy, he's usually in slow motion, and then if somebody gets on, he puts it into super slow motion. So you're definitely right about that.
Yeah,
but
because I remember he pitched that game. The time of that game was pretty quick. That game, remember the game that we clinched the division in 2006, which I attended. That was a
against
pretty
the
quick
Marlins.
game. Yeah, that I remember the time of that game ended up going pretty quick for a Traxel start.
Yeah, I think that that was one of those games where the Marlins just didn't want to play. They were swinging at every first pitch. It was kind of a foregone conclusion the Mets were going to clinch, and I think the Marlins just wanted to get out of Dodge. But you're right. That was one of the quicker games that he pitched. But enough of our trip down memory lane. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Let's catch back up with the 2024 Mets, who are currently surging right now, Dan, because right now, if you look at the last 45 games, the beginning of the season, me and you had a lot of reason to be upset with this team. And we voiced it, rightfully so, in my opinion. They were 11 games under 500 before this streak started. But look at this, Dan. Dating back to, this is maybe a couple of games prior to the Grimace first pitch. Oh, no, actually, this is dating back to the day of the Grimace first pitch. The Mets are 30-15 in their last 45 games played. And now, on top of all this, the division is still a little bit out of reach because Philadelphia is probably the best team in baseball right now. But the Mets have moved to within 2 games of the number 1 wild card team, the Atlanta Braves. And we'll see them this week, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, what a run this team has been on. And they've been getting contributions all over the place. Luis Torrens has been great off the bench as the backup catcher for the Mets. Edwin Diaz has come back and has performed well when he's been asked to, even though the other night he ended up throwing 28 pitches and was unavailable for last night's game. And what happens when one of your big guys is unavailable, Dan? Next man up, right? Next man up.
And
Jake
Diekman got the job
done. Me and you, we just look at that. Look at that chemistry right there.
Yeah. That was like
take it home.
And I can tell you, I was nervous like when watching that game. I'm in my living room, sitting next to Mr. Malunigan, sitting next to me. My uncle happens to be visiting from Florida this week, so he's unfortunately my uncle's a Yankees fan, but he's the one there. And his dog was kind of sitting next to me because I couldn't help but want to invite his dog to sit next to me, because how could you beat having 2 dogs sitting next to you?
Of course.
And I'm just nervous. And Mr. Malunigan and my uncle's dog, they seem to be both doing the barking thing after me going nuts during the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Jake Diekman, man, you got to give him credit. The guy has had his ups and his downs this year. Just I remember Steve Gelb's talking to him in the moments following last night's game after he got the final out. But, Dan, he walks Juan Soto on 4 pitches. Now, when he goes out there, one of the main reasons that he's in there is to take care of Juan Soto. But he didn't want to give in. He didn't want to give Soto a pitch to hit because, let's not forget, Soto hits lefties pretty damn well, too. So Diekman walked him on 4 straight pitches to bring up Aaron Judge. And, since April 27th, all Aaron Judge has done is gone and hit 362 and lead the league in every statistic possible. So, having a left-handed pitcher that's, kind of a middling guy come in and face the hottest and best hitter in baseball didn't really seem too great on paper. I wasn't exactly going crazy. I wasn't like flipping out or losing my mind or anything, but I was not happy that Diekman was facing, Judge in that situation last night and pitching to him too. Even a couple of guys, I saw Todd Zeal and Nelson Figueroa talk about it in the post game, how they both said, hey, it worked out, but I would have walked Judge too. And even though it put the tying run on second base, the rest of that Yankee lineup, which we'll show you in a second how pathetic the Yankee lineup is outside of those 2 guys. But, what'd you think about Diekman facing Aaron Judge in that spot and having the confidence of his manager backing him up and then getting the job done, striking Aaron Judge out, looking?
I have to give a lot of props to him getting the job done, because I was nervous as fuck. Like, I was like, oh no, please don't freaking blow this. It better not fucking blow this. Like, I'm just yelling out. I'm probably cursing up a storm. to the point that I think maybe my neighbors might think I have Tourette's or something because of how much cursing there was in front of the TV during Met games. But he got the job done, and I was just going nuts, and I just had to calm down and get. And after I calmed down after all that going nuts, I had to go to the bathroom like crazy. Like maybe I may have drank 2 tall boys.
All right. So that makes sense.
Yes, I may have had two very, and by that I mean two very tall cans of a more.
Moo.
Yeah.
Moo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was drinking.
Linger longer, everybody. Linger longer.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's what I drank, and somehow they got to say that. Even though my uncle's a Yankees fan, we kind of shook hands, and after the game, did the whole hockey, similar, the whole hockey handshake kind of thing, and we were like arm in arm singing New York, New York.
Oh, that sounds good. At least your uncle is a good sport about it. And hey, tonight, as me and you are recording this right now, Game 2 of the Subway Series is just getting underway too. Garrett Cole starting for the Yankees against the Mets' David Peterson. So we'll keep you updated if anything happens right now. 1 out in the first inning. Brandon Nimmo up right now. No score from Yankee Stadium. So we'll keep an eye on that game as anything develops. But Dan, let's keep it rolling along here. And I did want to give a guy a shout out who I've been very frustrated with for a lot of this year. Jeff McNeil is finally hot, Dan. He hits another, and he's making a habit of doing this lately. He hit another big home run last night. It was a 2-run shot in the 6th inning to break a 1-1 tie. Just a absolutely much needed hit from a guy who, he needed that hit just as much as the team did. So just a great hit for Jeff McNeil, who, by the way, destroys the Yankees. He's a 347 career hitter against the Yankees. So love that. I'm a big fan of McNeil, and it's good to see him hot again, right?
Yeah, it is. It was good to see that. And I think I commented on his Instagram when I said, but I wonder maybe petting your dog may have had an effect on that, on his hot streak. Because I just feel like me, myself, and even plenty of other people I know, when things are going south, just somehow there just needs to be some good mojo out of petting your dog if you have a dog.
I like that. I like that idea. No doubt about it. Everybody loves petting their dog, and it's definitely can make you feel like good luck. No doubt about that. As I just saw the corner of my eye, JD Martinez fly out, and the Mets are retired 1-2-3 in the top of the first. So Garrett Cole gets out unscathed against the team that he has the highest career ERA versus. So going to be interesting to see how he performs tonight, coming off the shellacking the Mets gave him last month at Citi Field. I expect he'll be better, but, let's keep our fingers crossed I'm wrong. So Jeff McNeil has taken this hot streak. Love seeing that right now. And Dan, just to wrap up on the Mets side of things from this, before we take a look at the Yankee side, now, it's all fun and games tonight now against the Yankees. And obviously it's the emotions are ramped up, and it's Yankee Stadium, so we're still going to be on edge. And even though the Mets are 3-0 against the Yankees this year and have already clinched the season series, hey, Dan, you know what's better than 3-0? 4-0. So let's see if the Mets can go out there and make it 4-0 against the Yankees. But things get real in a hurry after tonight's game, as the Atlanta Braves are coming in for a big 4-game series. Is it 4 games? I thought it was actually 3. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, it is 4. It is 4 games.
It is 4. Okay, good. I just wanted to double check myself. But yeah, it's a giant 4-game series. And this series right now, the Mets can go, if the Mets do damage in this series, let's say take 3 out of 4, they're going to be in the number 1 wild card spot by Sunday night. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that is insane to think of that. And I can tell you, I think this series is going to really be going to drain a lot out of me watching this series. It's gonna be something else. And I gotta say, speaking of I mean against the Mets against the Braves. There's one of our biggest supporters of our show, Bree, who's a Mets fan living in the South. She hates it when the Mets play against the Braves because it's blacked out on the MLB.TV, the being able to watch the Mets feed because she lives in the Braves, the viewing area of the Braves where she lives, when one of our biggest supporters, and she has to she's stuck watching the Braves feed and having to hit the mute button and put the radio feed whenever that happens.
Well, shout out to Bree. Obviously, a great supporter of ours. Love Bree. Hope everything is good with Bree. And also Dan, that's what happens living down in Brave country there. But that's why you gotta love the fact that you can always fall back on Howie Rose and the Mets radio call, right?
Yeah, exactly. As she'll do, she'll hit the mute on the TV, and then put the Howie Rose radio call.
Absolutely. So shout out to Bree. We understand the hardship it is having to deal with these, with obviously the Braves announcers and the national announcers too. And unfortunately, Dan, the Mets are down 1-0 as David Peterson gives up a leadoff home run, or it might not have been leadoff. Is Glaber leading off? Well, whoever it is, somebody just hit a solo shot off of David Peterson. And it's Glaber who hit it. And so the Mets are now down 1-0. It's okay. 1-0's not bad. Let's just hope that's all. Oh, and it's not Peterson. It's Sean Manaea. I saw the lefty out there. I thought it was Peterson. But it's Sean Manaea. So he gives up the solo shot to Glaber to lead things off. Yeah, Glaber's leading off today. So I think that actually opens this up because I want to show you this real quick. We'll get back to the Mets and the Braves real quick. I got one more thing I want to say about them, but you got to look at this. I came across these numbers earlier today, and look at this. This is the Yankees OPS by batting order position and where they're ranked in Major League Baseball. So if you look at it, obviously Aaron Judge and Juan Soto have pretty much batted second or third every game this year. So, not shockingly, they're first in both categories. Now, if you're not sure also, by the way, what OPS is, because it's kind of a newer stat, it's slug percentage and on-base percentage combined. Yeah. So, that's what it is, basically. So, I know it's kind of a fluky stat, so, but it does, on base and slugging does mean a lot in baseball. So that's where it is. Now, if you look, they just got a leadoff home run from the leadoff spot, and that has not happened too often this year, as the OPS ranking for the number one spot in the Yankees batting order is 27th. So in case you're wondering, there's 30 teams in baseball. That's third from the bottom. Then the Yankees sit on top in second and third, and then fourth, their cleanup spot, which, by the way, everybody, I don't know if you're a big baseball fan, if you're watching this. I'm sure you probably have at least some knowledge of the sport. You bat your power guys, your top power guys, which the Yankees kind of have an unorthodox lineup to begin with. But most of the time, you bat one of your bigger power guys, or at least a bat that can drive in runs in the fourth hole, or as they call it, cleanup in baseball. The Yankees have the worst, let me repeat that, the worst 30th out of 30 OPS ranking for the number 4 spot in that lineup. Now, if you look at that even more so, that is even more impressive what Judge and Soto have done this year, because that means they've done that with literally zero protection. Having protection in your lineup means a lot, and it can help even the best hitters in the game. And when you look at it, that the Yankees lineup spot for the number 4 hole is ranked worst in baseball, man, that is crazy, right, Dan?
Yeah, that is crazy. They were able to do what they did early, get off to the start they got off to, with despite these numbers we're looking at right here on the screen.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the bottom of the lineup, okay, 5 through 9, they're pretty much in the top 10 for every spot but 8th. So it's not that bad. But I mean, gee, when you look at the numbers that jump off the page to me are 27 and 30 in the number 1 and 4 holes. And it's just hard to believe with numbers like that the Yankees have still played as well as they have for the most part this year. So, obviously they've run into their struggles the last month and a half or so. But for the most part, the Yankees have been a pretty damn good team all year long, even with the struggles from the leadoff and cleanup spot. So, I definitely wanted to just share that with you guys because that blew my mind when I saw that earlier. As now Mania just retired Aaron Judge. So 1-0 Yankees, 2 outs, bottom of the first. One more thing on the Mets as we take a look at the pitching matchup that will kick off the 4-game set tomorrow at Citi Field. Chris Sale, who me and you have talked about at length in the past, how we wish the Mets would have done what the Braves did and picked him up this offseason. Would have been a great pickup. As Sale takes his 13-3 record with a 2.70 ERA into Thursday night's game against the Mets, and former Yankee Luis Severino on the mound, 7-3 with the 3.58 ERA. That's a pretty damn good pitching matchup. It's got a old Yankees Red Sox feel to it, as the former Yankee ace meets the former Red Sox ace from just a couple of years back. So, Dan, what are your thoughts on a tough pitching matchup tomorrow?
I feel like this game's going to be a close. This one looks like it's going to be a close game. I feel like it could easily be a game that's going to end 4-2. Could hopefully a 4-2 Mets win.
Yeah, I mean 4-2 or 2-1 or 3-2 like we saw last night. So yeah, I agree with you. It's probably going to be tough to score, but hey, sometimes when you think that, it ends up being an 8-7 game. So I guess we'll see how things break out. This is also the first start after the break for both these guys. So, take that into consideration too, that both these guys haven't pitched in about 10 days or so, maybe a couple of days longer than that. So we'll see how they bounce back after a considerable amount of time off. But now we'll shift to the Yankees side of things and take a look real quick at them before we jump into some Jets and Giants training camp stuff and round the show out. But, when you look at that lineup thing that me and you put up before, Dan, these numbers then should not be that shocking when you look specifically against the Mets this year, too. These are the numbers. The Yankees are 3 for 26 with runners in scoring position against the Mets in 2024. That's terrible. Just a shade over 100, basically. So really not too good there for the Yankees, and not much better when runners on base overall, as the Yankees are 8 for 49 with runners on base against the Mets. And, that's why, you see the Yankees did their damage earlier this inning with a solo shot, and that's really the only way they're doing damage against the Mets this year is a solo shot here, a solo shot there, and they're just not getting the job done with runners on base.
Yeah, exactly. And it's showing, and it's kind of been able to play into the Mets' favor. That's allowed us to kind of get there until we were able to make a big run out of it and score a bunch of runs.
Yeah, exactly. And now the Mets are going to have to try to do that again today, as they have plenty to base it off of, as they just have been clutch against the Yankees this year, especially in those first 2 games at Citi Field, where the Mets offense was really pumping. But right now, it looks like JD Martinez is kind of in a little bit of a funk coming into and going out of the All-Star break. So we'll see if he can right the ship a little bit. Pete Alonso, actually, right now, is having the statistically worst month of his career. So, I'm a big fan of Pete Alonso. I've seen a lot of him take a lot of flack from a lot of different guys this year. And, I heard a comparison the other day of, well, I think it was Mike Vaccaro, one of the sports writers around here locally, said that whatever Aaron Judge did in 2022 on the walk year of his contract, when he went crazy and hit 62 home runs walking into his free agent year and won the MVP, that's the complete opposite of whatever Pete Alonso has done this year. Now, I don't know if I'd go out on that far, because obviously, Judge had an insane year in 2022, but Pete Alonso is still, he's still got 19 home runs and 50 RBIs. The guy's on pace for 35 plus home runs and close to, if not over, 100 RBIs. I mean, I wouldn't say that's a bad year. Would you, Dan?
No, and I plus that I just know what all of a sudden happened. There might be at one point during the season he goes on this little cold streak, but then all of a sudden when he wakes up, he wakes up in a big way.
That's true. That's true. I expect a big August out of Pete, but the thing for me is, and God bless Francisco Lindor, as me and you've criticized him at times in the past too, but he has been red hot when the Mets have needed him to stay relevant for the last 2 months, basically. Pete Alonso was red hot for a little while there. He's definitely cooled off over the last month, having, as I said, statistically the worst month of his career right now. But yeah, I agree with you, Dan, where I don't think that, you can count Pete Alonso out. He's going to have a rebound. But the question for me is it going to be in time? Now, the Mets have to keep winning. If they keep winning, then that gives Pete Alonso time to get his act together. But if they start to get into a tough stretch and really start to struggle here after this Yankee series, specifically against the Braves, people are going to start pointing the finger at him, and he's really going to have to come up big.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be this next couple of games going to be a big telling, depending how these next couple of games play out. And yeah. I can tell you one thing. I gotta really give credit to the way I feel like one of the reasons why Pete Alonso probably could blow up, all of a sudden go on an explosion of big numbers is probably he seems to be good at the way of handling the struggle.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
He seems to be handling it well, and I just feel
he's
like
very even keel.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like the greats just know how to handle that when they're struggling well. And I feel that's just a key thing to how some of these greats have been successful is how they're able to handle a cold stretch.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. That shows character with guys that can deal with that. So definitely me and you both believe that Pete has it in him to turn the ship around. He still had a pretty good first half anyway. So definitely all the confidence in the world. We'll see better things out of Pete. Maybe even tonight. He kills the Yankees, as even though he did just strike out against Garrett Cole. So nice breaking pitch there from Garrett Cole. Sits down Pete, but it's still early. 1-0 Yankees. And, we were just talking about where the Mets go after this Subway Series now, and things really get heated up for the Mets when they play the Braves. But the next 6 games for the Yankees are really make and break too, Dan, as right now, after tonight, the Yankees actually have off on Thursday, but then they open up a 6-game road trip that starts off with 3 at Boston, which, by the way, me and you mentioned on the show in the past. We mentioned it on this past Patreon show on our Sunday show, which, by the way, if you want a little extra content in your daily life and see our little extra things that we have to throw on, and we do our Sunday Patreon show every Sunday. Check us out, $5 a month Patreon, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. We appreciate all the support we get there. But, me and you we're talking about it, Dan. The Yankees have lost 8 of their last 9 Sunday night games against the Red Sox. So it's going to be real interesting to see as, once again, the Yankees and Red Sox play this weekend. So we will get yet another Sunday night game between the Yankees and Red Sox. It'll be real interesting to see if the Yankees can get that monkey off their back, so to speak, and finally get a win against the Red Sox on Sunday night. And it seems like it's taken forever.
Yeah, I just feel like this is. I mean, we're talking about similar how the Mets are going through a stretch that could make or break the season. I feel like right now the Yankees are going through the same stretch like this that could make or break their season. These next 6 games are going to be a big telling of where they are.
Oh my God. Juan Soto just robbed Jeff McNeil of a home run. So Jeff McNeil was within inches of tying the game at 1. So Juan Soto just made a really good catch at the wall, taking a home run away from McNeil. So unfortunate that we didn't see that. But yeah, I agree with you, Dan, though, just to get back on track as it's a pivotal series for the Mets, just as it is a pivotal series for the Yankees too. They have to go into Boston, actually, to be honest, no matter what happens tonight, if the Yankees win tonight, they've already lost the season series against the Mets. They're playing for a split. They're not playing for a sweep or anything tonight. So they're really just playing for pride right now. And they're going against Boston now. So, I mean, to get yourself going again, the Yankees have to at least win 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox this weekend, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is in just 2 months, 2.25, I guess a small percentage of 2 months left in the regular season. This is going to be a key series this year.
Yeah. And then it doesn't get any easier with that. As Boston, they're always a thorn in the Yankees' side, no matter what the record is. But Boston still is a formidable team. They're right there in the wild card hunt as well. But Philadelphia takes it up a notch after that, because you go from Boston and that series, which always is emotional with its Yankees Red Sox, and then you're going into Philly, where the Phillies are the best team in baseball right now. So the Yankees have to remember that these next 6 games, it's not going to be easy. But me and you have looked at stretches for the Mets and say, okay, they got to go 4-2, they got to go 5-1 or whatever. For the Yankees, man, when you look at this 4-2, they have to, 5-1, 6-0. Obviously, that'd be great. 4-2, in my opinion, is the bare minimum for these next 6 games for the Yankees. They have to go 4-2, because if they go 3-3, then you're just right back where you started. Then you got to start, whatever it is next week. You got to start this big run the Yankees need to go on to get to the playoffs. You know what I mean? So they can't go 3-3 in these 6 games. They have to at least go 4-2.
Yeah, exactly. And it only gets harder from this if they lose these next 2 series. They're gonna have a hard time trying to play catch up and trying to win on, especially when the fact that Baltimore is winning practically on the same pace as the Yankees.
And even better than them.
It's almost reminding me of what happened with the 2002 Mets, that you had 2 teams that were playing on a 100-win pace, which doesn't happen that often. And you got 2 division rivals playing on a pace to win pretty much the same amount of games, and it just wore the teams out.
The 2022 Mets. Yeah, you're right. You said 2002. I was thinking about Mo Vaughn for a second.
I'm sorry. I meant to say 2022.
It's okay. It's okay. Easy. I knew what you meant, but at first I'm thinking to myself, wait. I remember a big hit from John Valentin in April that year, but then it all went south after that. But so just to keep it rolling along, Dan. Let's turn the page over to some NFL training camp. Everybody loves NFL training camp.
Yep.
As we got the Jets and the Giants both reporting, they held their first practices today. They met with the media, so we got a lot to get into from that. Dan, before I even get into any of the stuff that I noticed, is there anything that from you, from you looking at your New York Giants news sources, what stood out to you from a Giants perspective on the first day of camp today?
Well, it looks like Malik Neighbors is showing that he's worth everything our decision to draft him. I also see like Daniel Jones might look like he's kind of maybe trying to get the rust off at the start of the season. I feel like. Also from what I've been hearing, unfortunately, and as we said in the beginning of the show, of course, at the beginning of the show, our offensive line is getting hurt.
Yeah.
And,
so
I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. This doesn't happen at the start of the season. I don't need this again. It was bad enough we had no offensive line, and it pretty much left Daniel Jones right out in the open of taking way too many hits that caused him to be out for the season, and that's not a good thing.
No, it's true, man. So you pretty much hit on a couple of the things that I wanted to talk about too. So the thing with Daniel Jones, you talked about him knocking off the rust, and there's a reason why he'd have a little bit of rust, because he's practicing fully. They said Daniel Jones is a full participant, and it's only 8 months after he had the surgery to repair his torn right ACL. So, obviously the Giants are going to be looking at how he's moving out there, if he's favoring his right side, if he still has the same mobility that he did prior to the injury, what he'd have to do to correct anything post-injury too. So, I agree with you 100% on that, Dan. And, obviously the Giants general manager, Joe Shane, did the same thing as he went out there and in his press conference today said, we need better from Daniel Jones in 2024, and specifically also said they need better from head coach Brian Daboll as well. And as a Giants fan, you have to agree with that, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a make or break year for Daniel Jones and for Brian Daboll. I feel in order for even to look at Brian Daboll maybe returning the next year, will all hinge on at least making the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, they have to be in that mix. If the Giants are going in to week 17 or week 18, whatever the final week of the season is now, if they're going into that final week and the Giants have no shot at making the playoffs, I don't know if he's back next year. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I really feel like so. If the Giants are out of contention in the last 2 weeks of the season, it's pretty much the writing on the wall of Brian Daboll's legacy coaching with the Giants.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And the other thing about that too that I found really interesting, especially that you said it right off the bat too. You said it as soon as we came on today, talking about the Giants' injured offensive line. Now let's not forget there was a lot made about the Jets' offensive line last year with the injury to Aaron Rodgers and how many guys they went through, and it was like a turnstile back there. The Giants' offensive line had a lot of the same problems. The Jets and the Giants both were betrayed by their offensive line last year, and it cost them both their quarterbacks pretty much. Rodgers ended up missing the whole season, and Daniel Jones was able to tough it out early on, but he got the crap kicked out of him early on, and then it showed later in the year when he suffered that injury and ended his season,
Yeah, exactly. It's like you freaking can't let the quarterback get hit like that. It's just like if you take so many hits like that, it's inevitable you're going to get an injury that's going to cost significant amount of games during the season.
Yeah, it's true, Dan. So, but now there's a couple of things that I did like. The Giants have been proactive in bringing guys in and filling out that O-line. Same thing with the Jets. But one thing I did find interesting is that former New York Giant Justin Pugh, they said that the Giants, it's known the Giants' offensive line needs to be better, as well as a lot of them. Justin Pugh, who, by the way, came in when the Giants were having a lot of problems last year, and in my opinion, was really a stabilizing force. Now, by no means was the offensive line after the addition of Justin Pugh last year for the Giants a Pro Bowl caliber offensive line, but I think Justin Pugh provided really solid work, good depth. He was a good guy. This is a guy that wants to be here. This is a guy that wants to be a New York Giant. He understands what it is to be on this team and what it means to wear that uniform. And what do you think, Dan? What do you think about the potential of a reunion with the Giants and Justin Pugh?
I'm all for it. And I feel like you got really nothing to lose about it.
I agree. In my opinion, it could be a low risk, high reward situation where the Giants really wouldn't have to guarantee him much money. And, they could probably even bring him on the practice squad at first just to see if he's in shape and if he makes the cut. But this is a guy that has the ability and the want to be a New York Giant. And in my opinion, that's pretty tough to pass up on.
Yeah, exactly. If I was the GM, I'd say bring him into training camp and give him a shot to make the team.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. So it's going to be interesting. Keep our eye on what Dable and Shane have up their sleeves over there on the Giants side of MetLife. Now let's take a look. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I forgot to say. Speaking of Giants training camp, I myself will actually be there at training camp on Sunday. I will be seeing everything unfold in person.
Very cool. And you know what you have to do too, Dan? Give us, while you're there, you're gonna have to record a couple of videos and give us your like the Bobo training camp feel. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that definitely. I'll make sure to get some videos. I'll definitely get some videos from the Giants training camp whenever I can film. I don't know exactly the rules of what I can film and what I can't film because I don't know what the policies are on cameras or videoing any footage, but I will. I'll figure that out when I get there. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be talking about what I saw and what it was like getting to see this in person. And there's going to be some. I'm going to be joined by a very, very, very special guest who some tickets for free. I snagged up some extra tickets. So a certain legendary redhead will be joining us.
That's right. So keep your eyes peeled for that. A good friend of ours will be joining Dan there. So very cool that Dan's going to have that experience there at training camp this Sunday. And completely off the topic here, but don't forget to check out the Dave Mack Sports program on YouTube. Check him out there. That just came off the top of my head. I don't know why. But all right. Let's wrap things up here now with finally the New York Jets also reported for training camp today. A couple of things. Obviously, look, when you talk Jets, you talk Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers addressed the media today, talks his trip to Egypt, missing 2 OTA days and returning to practice. I thought, what did you think? I know me and you touched on it a little bit, but just since we're talking the situation right here, right now, what did you think about all the hubbub people made about Aaron Rodgers taking a trip to Egypt and missing a couple of games here? But by the way, Dan, before you answer that, Tyrone Taylor just hit a solo home run into the left field bleachers at Yankee Stadium, and the Mets currently tied the Yankees. OMG, baby, OMG. 1-1 in the top of the third here at Yankee Stadium. So Tyrone Taylor putting one in the seats. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I'm sure every Met fan that made the trip out to the Bronx is going nuts. And I would expect that. And I have to admit, if I was in the stands, I'd be there waving the Grimace plushie. if I owned a Grimace plushie. I gotta buy a Grimace plush to wave around at the game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But all right, cool.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, exactly. I gotta buy one and I'll have it on the spot next to the TV, right next to where I keep a Mr. Met plush and a Pikachu plush. I'll have this Grimace plush there sitting next to the TV, wearing one of those little ice cream bowl those batting helmet ice cream bowls. They'll probably be wearing one of those.
All right, all right. Hey, I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you. So 1-1 in the Bronx right now. But just to wrap up here with the Jet stuff, Dan, I mean, what did you think about all this crazy crap with these people making such a big deal about Aaron Rodgers missing 2 days of training camp when he told the Jets, or it wasn't even training camp, it was 2 days of OTAs, which nobody takes seriously, but they made a big deal about it because it's Aaron Rodgers. This is a guy who, by the way, as we're going to say in a minute, that there were 12 OTA days. Aaron Rodgers attended 10 of them. And, they make a big deal about the 2 days that he missed. What did you think about that, Dan?
I think they're just making blowing smoke over nothing. He was at every practice, everything in the off season. He put in a lot of work. He put in all the work to be ready for the season, and you're making a big deal about a little thing he missed, little nothing. I don't get the press sometimes.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where they had it was the NFL reporters. It's the end of June, the beginning of July. There's no free agency to talk about now. The draft is done. Training camp is still a couple of weeks away, so they had nothing to talk about. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't get the press sometimes too. They try to make this big deal, but nobody took it seriously. The only people that were even talking about it were these idiots on these ESPN talking head shows,
Yeah, I know those talking head shows. Like I swear, I feel like I wish they would bring. You know what? I wish ESPN would bring back. Remember that show on ESPN called Cheap Seats? Remember?
Yeah.
Remember it was like. Remember it was like Mystery Science Theater 3000, only with old sporting event footage, and sometimes they would take these obscure stuff from ESPN too. I would love to see them bring that show back, and maybe not only mixing sporting event footage, maybe mixing footage of some of these talking head shows, and letting the two guys, I forgot their names, do their funny comments about some of these talking head shows. As a matter of fact, if they wanted to provide Cheap Seats with two brand new people, how about us do it?
Right here. Let's go. Best seat in the house. The B-sit boys.
Yeah, I'd be game for doing it. For the both of us doing a reboot. The both of us, if they wanted to have us be a part of a reboot of Cheap Seats, I'd be game for that. I would love that.
I'm with you, Dan. I'm with you. Let's go, buddy. Let's go. And the last thing I did want to take a look at before we get out of here, Dan, is the word is. And the word I say specifically, it came from Rodgers' mouth himself. He's been taking the young wide receivers Malachi Corley, who is the Jets' third-round pick, and obviously the young Garrett Wilson, who's entering his third year in the league now, under his wing. They were saying specifically, I really liked how Rodgers was talking about how he was talking to Garrett Wilson about how Wilson he's so explosive and such a dynamic player that sometimes it's hard to predict what he's going to do and where he's going to go. So Rodgers was even saying sometimes you have to just kind of reel it in a little bit, not all the way, but just reel it in a little bit so it's a little bit more predictable for Rodgers what he's going to do, and he can get the ball in his hands that much easier. It was interesting hearing Rodgers talk about that, and also hearing Wilson talk about how he studied how defenses defended Rodgers, during his time in Green Bay. So that could give him another. So it's interesting to just hear that little insight about how Garrett Wilson is, kind of combining studying film and getting personal advice from Aaron Rodgers to, kind of put the two together and prepare himself adequately for playing a full season with Aaron Rodgers for the first time now.
Yeah, so another reason why I think the media should maybe hold back on what they're saying about Aaron Rodgers. This guy has been he's been taking I feel like a leadership role and really taking these young players out of under his wing. He's really showing what it takes to be the quarterback on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You're 100% right. This guy has been a model teammate since he came here. Just over a year ago, 15 months ago, whatever it was. He's been a model teammate since then, even during his injury and everything. So yeah, these guys in the media that don't like him, it's mostly because they don't like his quote unquote politics. They don't like the fact that he didn't get vaccinated. They don't like the fact that he's an opinionated guy. And these media guys just hold that against them because, for lack of a better term, they're assholes. So
yeah, I know. I know what you mean. It's just whatever happened. It just these people being able to coexist, even though they may have different opinions, they could just be able to coexist. That just makes me shocked that his life it's come down to this these days, and I hear about that.
It really is crazy, Dan. I'm with you on that, man. It's I forget who even said it, but it's like one of those quotes from the old days. Can't we all just get along? Like I don't get it, but hey, at least me and you know the deal. And Dan, I think the deal is that we're pretty much done for today now. So thank everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. But Dan, before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure. I got to plug my Twitter account, Bobo103NYC. You can see it right there under the screen. Also on Instagram and on Threads, it's the same username on both accounts. Bobo718DK on both Instagram and Threads. Also, one word, Daniel Curlin on YouTube, where you can see all the Bobo content. Which, by the way, subscribe to our Patreon, 2 weeks early access to all the Bobo content on YouTube, including episodes of Tracks I Admitted, all on our Patreon, all for what's approximately the cost of a round trip on a Metro card.
Exactly. So do yourself a favor, subscribe to our Patreon now. Best Seat in the House podcast on Patreon. If you are inclined to, we appreciate it. We appreciate all those that have already taken the plunge and given their $5 to us. So thank you so much. We really appreciate all the support. It's always so fun jumping on those Sunday shows and having a good time. So and let's not forget, once the NFL season starts, we'll be having our NFL post-game shows for each Giants and Jets game as well. So, all right, that's going to do it for us on this week's episode. For my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast. I will catch you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend.